Okay, for this exercise, you're going to be starting with the rationale that I had you write 2 or 3 sentences, and you're going to take that rationale and we're going to start working with that as like placeholder type. And it's going to be the beginning of the copy that you'll work with your postcard. What we're going to do is we are going to look at, and by we I mean you're going to set this type at a size that is comfortable to read. Okay, so if you decided to make your own Illustrator template to start exploring type sizes, you're going to choose your own size of postcard. And so when you click on the link that's posted, the minimum size is 5.5 by 3.5 inches up to this size here before it needs extra postage. So you can do any size within that. I'm going to work on a size that's the maximum width by the minimum height. So I'm going to give this kind of long but shallow postcard. Like I said, you can do it any size you want. You can do a square one, just as long as it's different than the one in the template. And that way, I'll know that you created this yourself and you didn't work from the template. In Illustrator, I'm going to create a new document. And here I'm going to choose inches just to make it easier. And I'm going to do 9.6 by 3.5 inches. Choose bleed. And so the bleed is important because it allows you to print beyond the edge. Going to make sure this is selected here. So we only have to enter it once. And we're going to do 0.25. And I'm going to go ahead and create this. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to create a margin for it. Rectangle tool, start here, and I'm using my smart guides to draw a rectangle. And when I look here, you can see here that it doesn't look like the dimensions are right. And that is, if you remember, because Illustrator is adding the width of the stroke to the size of the rectangle. But what we can do here is we can change this so it draws a stroke on the inside of the rectangle. And that way, if we click on here, we'll see that we have the right size. So we want a margin, and I'm going to choose the reference point from the center. I'm going to make sure that we're not constraining the width and the height, and I'm going to go -1, and that'll give me a 1/2 inch margin on each side, and I'm going to do the same with the height. I'm going to -1 inch, and that gives me a margin to work with. From there, I'm going to take my selection tool, I'm going to right click on this, and I'm going to call this one point size 1, and then I'm going to duplicate it, and one more time, and that'll make 3 artboards, point size 2 and point size 3. I'm going to take these 3, I'm going to take my artboard tool, and I'm going to click here, and as I drag down, I hold the Option key and the Shift key, and that gives me 3 more artboards, and these ones are going to be for testing the leading. Leading 1, leading 2, leading 3. The last thing I'm going to do to set this up, put in a label that'll help me remember the type size for each of them. So I'm going to call this typeface. So make sure you type in the typeface here that you're using, and then the size. And I'm going to rotate it, place it right here. Let's see which ones can we use here. Clavica is a good one. So it can be Clavica, Command X to cut it, and then this little trick, paste on all artboards. This one here, and I'll paste the same thing on all the artboards. And make sure you give it your name, save this, and then I'm going to jump into the artboard, into the standard artboard that we're using for this exercise in setting the type size. So here, once you've downloaded this file and opened it up, you'll see that there's 6 artboards. So these top 3 are for testing your point size. And the bottom row is for testing your leading. So go ahead and save this, save it with your name. And then all you're going to do is you're going to go here. And what I did, and this I recommend that you do too, is use Grammarly. So these tools helpful for avoiding mistakes that are going to distract. So again, this exercise was to write a short rationale, 2 to 3 sentences describing how might we statement aligns with the 5 big moves. So copy and then go here. So each of these artboards has 3 things on it. It has a label, and here you're going to enter the typeface that you choose. It has a text object, and underneath there is a guide for your margin. So in order to keep things really clean and not move things around accidentally, go ahead and lock your guides if they're not already locked, and then you'll be able to select this type object and paste. And you can see that I've already set this up with a margin on the left. Please go ahead and choose your own typeface. You can go ahead and choose a typeface here that you want to work with. I'm working with IBM Plex Sans, and I'm giving you a list of typefaces that you can use. You're welcome to choose something similar, but what I don't want you doing is choosing anything that is quirky or distracting, because what you're trying to do is make something that is highly legible. So and if you're confused at all and you don't know which to choose, this tool here can be helpful. You can choose a filter out, so you're only looking at sans serifs or serifs. Plex Sans, and I'm choosing IBM Plex Sans Lite. I'm going to choose that one, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose 3 sizes for it. And you can see here, this is where you set your size. So I'm starting with 10 point. I'm going to go ahead and select all, copy, and I'm going to go to this type object, and I'm going to paste. And I'm going to select it all, and I'm going to go 1 point size up, so 11 points. And I'm going to do this with the next one here. You can see here that there's an extra space in there. So go ahead and paste this. You're going to see here that there's an extra space. And Illustrator is a very powerful tool to manipulate type with. And it allows you to see type in a lot of different ways. And one of the ways it allows you to see it is it allows you to see all of the characters, even the ones that are hidden. So here you can see that it's showing me paragraph spaces. There's an extra couple of spaces at the end. So all of these characters have particular uses, and here I have 2 extra spaces at the beginning, and I'm just going to delete those. I'm going to select, so I'm here, I'm going to select this type object, and I'm going to change it to 12. So before you print it out, you're going to go ahead and put on here what are the sizes. So this one is 10, this one is 11, and this one is 12. Okay, so once you have these 3 sizes here, you're going to go ahead and print it. So you're printing, you're not going to print them all, you're only going to print 1 to 3. So these are the artboards. Naming your artboards is going to make your life a lot easier, so make sure you keep those named. The other thing that you need to do is, because you're printing a white card onto a white piece of paper, you're going to want to know where exactly to trim it, So make sure that you choose here. You don't need all of these trim marks. You only need these trim marks here. And then go ahead and print it. And you're going to print it, you're going to select the size that is the easiest to read. Okay, so, you know, you're going to look at these point sizes and you're going to choose the one that's most comfortable to read. You don't want it to be too big. Obviously, you want to start as small as you can. You want to be able to go up in size and still have room on your postcard. So I chose this one here, which is 10 point. So I'm going to take this and click inside of here. So again, if you have your selection tool, you can actually go in here and you can double click and that'll convert, it'll switch you to the type tool automatically. Select all to copy, and then I'm going to go down here to the first leading. So again, leading comes from when we used to set type, it was metal type, and we use slugs of lead in between the lines of type to set the space between the lines. So by default, Illustrator is setting the leading at 120% of the point size. What I want you to do is look at different point sizes and see in that length of postcard what makes a comfortable reading. So depending on the line length that you use, different sizes is going to be easier to, different point sizes is going to make it easier to read. So I click in here and paste, select all, and next to, so this here is the point size, this here is the line spacing or the leading. So we're going to make this 13. Select all, copy, click in the third space, and I'm going to do a select all to get rid of that first like extra space at the beginning, and I'm going to paste. I'm going to select all again, and I'm going to set it at 14. At this point, again, you're going to go here and put the name of your typeface. So you've chosen 10 over 12. So here, instead of just putting 12 points, 10 points, you're going to put 10/12. So that is 10 over 12. So 10 points over 12 points leading. And this would be 10 over 13. And this last one would be 10 over 14. Go ahead and save your work. And here you're going to print it. And again, you're going to print it and trim it and test which leading is easiest to read, which is most comfortable. And just going to go ahead and file print and make sure again that you choose the right artboards. So we're choosing artboards 4 through 6. Make sure you've got the trim marks put in there. And go ahead and print your work. Once you've looked at it and you've chosen your point size, you're going to save the whole thing as a PDF. So save as a copy. PDF. And here I'm going to use my optimized PDF. So make sure if you haven't set that up, you do that. It'll save you quite a bit of time. Photoshop does it a little bit differently than Illustrator. Again, don't have to worry too much about compression here, but you definitely don't want to preserve Illustrator editing capabilities when you upload to Miro. And here you're going to make sure you choose trim marks. You don't need all of these marks, but just the trim marks. And go ahead and save the PDF. And from here, you can upload it onto your Miro board. You're going to go ahead and save it. You're going to do save as a copy. This is important. I've had a few of you ask me about this. Save as a copy. How do you do the optimized PDF again? It's just, you're doing a save as a copy. So get used to save as a copy PDF. You're going to do all the artboards, save, and here you're going to choose your optimized preset. So there's no images to compress, but it's a good habit to get into. And again, you're going to do the trim marks. You're going to save the PDF. And once you're done, you're going to go to your Miro board, just like I did. You're going to take your PDF. Drag it onto your Miro board. And here you can see that it exported it with the trim marks conveniently. Ooh, I got an extra type on there. Didn't even notice it. Okay. And an extra one here too. I will fix that before so make sure you fix it. If you get something messy in there, just take a minute to redo it. Once you have your PDF here, you can see that on the pop-up, Miro recognizes it as a PDF with 6 pages in it. In order to extract it, you just click on this icon here, extract pages, select all, and extract. You can delete the original, take all of these, and just put it on one artboard. So one frame. Make sure that you're choosing no fill, so it's easy to see what all those different ones are. Make sure you tell me which one you chose, right? So put a post-it note on here indicating which one you chose as your, super embarrassing. Point size. You can even put chosen point size here. And chosen lighting. So now you have a record of what you chose. Again, you're going to be submitting this along with your hierarchy exercise on the, make sure you name this. So make sure you name your frames. So type size. And you are going to be submitting this along with all your other exercises that you've done in class under your general visual analysis of formal elements and principles. So your texture exercise, your point, line, and plane, and I've listed them there for you to see. So let's move on to the hierarchy exercise. So when you open this hierarchy file, you'll see you have 4 artboards. Select all, and choose the typeface that you're working with. So, and then choose your typeface. And what that does is it's just gonna reset all these labels that I've set for you. So they're all set in the same typeface that you're gonna be working with. So if your guides aren't locked, make sure that you lock them before you start so you're not moving the wrong thing around. You can go ahead here and enter your name. If you want to do that on all the artboards, that'll avoid missing that at the end. So go ahead and put your name in each of those. And there's 4 artboards, so do that on each of them, and then start at the beginning. Gonna go to the type, size, and lighting that you chose. Exercise. So actually this here is a outline. It's not text. The text is underneath here. So if you're wondering where these hidden objects are, you can always go here to view and look at it in outline mode. And that's preview mode and outline mode. So one thing that's been set up here is that all these have been set up with a margin here on the outside. You're not going to need that for this exercise, so you can go, I'm going to show you here how to get rid of that margin. So under paragraph, just remove the margin. The left margin. And so this first one is no hierarchy. So you haven't developed any hierarchy. Everything is just one block of text. For the next one, you are going to set up the hierarchy using contrasting colors. So I'm going to select all this and copy it again. And that should get rid of that extra margin. Okay, so here I want you to choose one phrase in your block of copy that you kind of feel, just maybe 3 or 4 words that sums up what this idea is about. So here with mine, I think it's about, what I think I'm getting at is this idea of local musical talent, and the idea around developing local musical talent, which is something that I think aligns well with what the city of Abbotsford wants to do. And what I want to do is I want to establish a hierarchy. So that is going to be the first thing that people see when they see, if this was the postcard, that would be the first thing they would see. So with this first one I'm going to use contrasting colors. So I'm just going to choose red. With the next one, and I want you to do the same thing. So just choose a color, and red's a really good choice. It is the second most common color of ink that printers have. With this one, I want you to focus on establishing hierarchy only by using intervals of space. So what you're going to do is you're going to split this up into 3 paragraphs. And here it can be helpful to look at your hidden characters. So, and I'm going to change my copy a little bit as I go through this, but I'm going to keep it pretty much true to this because I just want to keep it very simple. What I want to do is I want to add a margin on this side of the copy. So I'm going to do that using my paragraph controls. I'm going to add a nice generous margin just to shorten the line length. And part of that is to get this on its own line. So I'm going to hit enter, and you can see this added a paragraph space. So local musical talent, and I'm going to add another paragraph space. And then I'm not going to add another line as a paragraph because that is gets harder to control. So what you want to do is we really want to control this space. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select all 3 paragraphs. So I could do that by using the type tool. I could go and select all 3 paragraphs. But if I'm going to change all the copy in here, I can actually select it with my type tool, and you can see here that all the baselines are underlined. That means that any changes that I made to the text are going to apply to all 3 paragraphs. And I'm going to look here at my leading, which is 13 points. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add half of that in between each paragraph. And I'm going to make it a space after, so that means that after every paragraph, there will be half the leading added. So 13 divided by 2. And that kind of creates just enough space that that copy is gonna have some hierarchy. It's pretty minimal, but it's just enough. With the next one, I'm going to go back here to this copy that I started with. I'm going to take it, and what might be helpful with this is if I put this on one line. So local musical talent all in one line. So what I might do with this is, again, I'm going to look at my hidden characters, and I'm going to add a character that is called a line break. It's not a paragraph break, but it's a line break. And I'm going to get that by going here, type, insert, break character, forced line break. And here you can see that it adds this, it's different than the paragraph space, so it's not like this here. And I can see it with my hidden characters that here is a forced line break. And by putting all this on one line, kind of gives it a little more emphasis. I'm going to select this, so copy, and I'm going to go to the next artboard, and here I want to look at contrasting weight. And here, instead of using red, I'm going to keep this as black, and I'm going to change it to bold. And here's where it becomes important that you've chosen a typeface that has multiple fonts. Because if you choose a typeface that only has one font, it's going to be difficult to be doing these kind of exercises. Okay, I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to take this, the spatial intervals, now I want to look at just using alignment. So not a paragraph space, just alignment. So I'm going to take my selection tool, and by default it's going to select this. I'm going to remove the space between paragraphs, and I'm going to, using the same selection tool, I'm just going to double click inside here to select that line of copy to that paragraph, and I'm going to remove that margin. So here, just by alignment, we're creating hierarchy. Okay, now we're going to start to combine some attributes to create more hierarchy. So I'm going to select this same one. Actually, it's already copied. It's in my clipboard. So I can just go and paste it here. And now what I want to do is I want to use case and spatial interval. And so the temptation might be to go and retype that as capitals. It's hard to change it back and forth if you force it into all uppercase. So if you're styling with uppercase, it's better to use the controls here inside the character palette. If you can't see this line here of buttons, what you may have to do is you may have to expand the character palette. So just looking at this carefully, you can see here that this is actually it's not just a toggle on and off, but it's a staged toggle. So it's going to show you, parts of the palette at different points. So there's none, there's displaying some of the palette, and here's displaying all of it. And here you can see you have controls underneath. I don't recommend using this one here, the artificial small caps, but this one here is useful, the all caps. One important thing to realize is that when you are setting in all caps, it's important to give your type a little more space to breathe. So a little more negative space in between the characters. And for that, you're going to use this tool here, which is called tracking. This here is the kerning, so this sets the space in between individual characters. This tool here tracks out all the characters evenly. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add just the second step of units. So just opens it up a little bit more and it breathes a little bit better. So I'm going to turn off hidden characters. And here we looked at another way to create hierarchy, which is a little bit of styling and a little bit of space in between can create this perfect little balance of hierarchy. Okay, let's look at 3 more simple ways of creating hierarchy and then something a little more complex. So I want to go and I want to grab, and you can kind of tell what we're doing here because I put some labels underneath. So here we're going to look at weight, color, space, and alignment. So let's just grab this alignment one here. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, select all, copy, and go here. And again, if you can't see those, the type box, just go to your outline view. Going to go ahead and select this, and we're looking at weight as well. So choose bold. You can see here that IBM Plex has a pretty wide range of weights. If you're staying at the same size, you don't want to go up 1 step, you want to go up at least 2. And this one here is actually set for text. So it would be 1 and 2, and I'm going to go all the way up to bold just to make it more apparent. But it's a good rule of thumb to always go up by 2 steps if there's such a large range. Go ahead and turn my view back to preview, and I'm going to change this to red. So here we looked at weight, color, and alignment. And the only other thing we should add here is that space in between. So paragraph, and we're doing 13 divided by 2. Okay, I'm going to look at the next one. So select all, copy, and go down here. And I'm going to change this to black. And for this one, we're just looking at scale, space, and alignment. Change this back to light. And this time, I'm going to scale up the type. So I'm going to go here to the size, and I'm going to go times 1.618. And that gives me little more size. But here you can see something that happened is this space above became a little bit tighter. So I'm going to actually increase the leading as well. So I'm going to go here to 16. And that actually looks more comfortable. Okay, last one. Select all, copy, and then we're going to do something a little more complex. Here we're looking at scale, space, alignment. Here we're looking at scale, space, alignment, color, and italic. So here I want to look at, and actually I want to look at it with this one too. I want to look at breaking up this second paragraph so we have another unit to work with. So if you have this opportunity with your copy to add another element to the hierarchy, adding a space there could be good. Adding another paragraph space. And here you can see that power of the paragraph space. It automatically added that space in between, and there is no extra space. It's just a style that's been attached to the paragraph. So if I go to my hidden characters, you can see here that paragraph, 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 and this is part of the style of the paragraph. Okay, so here the last thing we want to look at is scale, space, alignment, color, and italic. And so I'm going to choose this paragraph here to italicize. And again, this is a font, not a style so much as a font. Another thing that this offers too is this, oh yeah, color as well. Color is these typefaces that have a large range of weights. It offers this opportunity to match the weight of the stroke when you go up in size. So I can select this here, and I can go with extra light. And here you can see that the weight of the stroke of this larger size starts to match this stroke size. And so you get this subtle, harmony between the two, even though you've gone up to a larger type size. Okay, so I'm going to, here it's almost like, here we almost need either more contrast or less. So here we could do the same thing, go to extra light, or we could go heavier to just increase the contrast. Okay, so for these last three, I'm gonna go a little bit more complicated. So I'm gonna copy this one here to start with, copy, then I'm gonna go to this artboard, and there is no, oh, there is actually a shape in there. I'm gonna delete it. And with this artboard selected, so I'm gonna start with this artboard, and here you can see there's a subtle difference in the selection of the artboards that happens when you click on the artboard. This outline gets a little bit darker. That's how you know which artboard you're on, unless you can see the palette here will tell you as well which artboard you're on. So I'm gonna choose this object, copy it. I'm gonna go to this artboard, and I'm gonna do edit, paste in front. And I'm gonna make some, I'm gonna just do a little bit of advanced editing on these type objects. So I want to split it off into two type objects. So I'm going to double click on this one, and I'm going to cut that. I'm going to delete that extra space, and then I'm going to change this type object and make it auto size. So here under type area, under the properties palette, type area, click on the ellipses, auto size, and okay, you can see it resized that type object so that it is so it fits better in the artboard. Take my selection tool, and I'm going to drag this down. I'm going to double click in here, select all, and paste. And I'm going to go back in here and add my paragraph space as well. With this one, I want to look at rotation. I want you to look at rotation. So I want you to select this type object here, actually cut it, and then just want you to paste it in, and just notice the difference between these two type objects. This one has no bounding box around it, and this one does. So this one here is, if you look here, this one here is not area type, and this one here is. So this one here gives me the option to convert it to point type, and this one here gives me the option to convert it to area type. So this is point type, which makes sense because it's all bound by this point here, the beginning of the baseline. This one here shows the baselines as well, but it has this bounding box around it that allows me to control the line length and other attributes as well, including space around this box. But let's work with this one for a minute, just so we kind of notice some of the differences between those two different type objects. So switch to the type tool, and I want you to add a forced line break. You'll notice that if you add a paragraph break, you get the paragraph space. So just a forced line break. Let's change this to black. And take the selection tool, and here you see we have this temporary bounding box around it, and let's rotate it like this. And then I want you to just position it in between these two, and you can see here that this alignment between this edge of the type is very strong. And so aligning it with the X height of your type gives it extra kind of a reason, a logical reason for where it lives, where it's hanging. You can use this one. If you have a third line in this line of copy, that could work as well. So that's one. Let's look at another one. And this time, all we want to look at is in order to move it down here and align it, I'm going to grab the bounding box as well. And I'm going to move it down holding the Shift key and then the Option key to copy it. I'm going to delete this extra bounding box just to keep things a little bit cleaner. And with this one, we're looking at rotation, scale, space, and alignment. So here, I'm going to change the alignment, but also scale it up in size. And we're trying to keep this margin around here. I know we lost the guides when we, and I'm going to scale it up 161%. And look at the difference here between these two when it comes to hierarchy. That one change, well, it's two changes here that we made. One was we added more space around it and we increased the size. That these two have quite a bit of difference in hierarchy. Okay, we're just going to do one more, but this one is quite a bit more complicated. And the alignment with the margin is not as critical. So with this last one, and you know what, you don't have to do these things precisely the same as what I did. Obviously your copies can be different, but I do want you to look at these subtle differences in contrast and how we create hierarchy in type. So with this last one, we're going to do this thing that broke up the distill movement. And what we're going to do is we are going to rotate all these objects. So we're just going to click here. So all I did was I took the rotation tool, and if you can't see it, it's usually underneath the scale tool, but it's easy to access. It's just the hotkey R. And I'm holding my Option key down, and here you can see the cursor changes when I hold my Option key down. It adds a little ellipses beside the cursor. So if I click, I get this this dialog box, and I can enter 45 degrees. The other option is to click and rotate, holding your Option key down, your Shift key down to constrain the angle. But what I want to do is I actually want this word local musician talent to still be upright. So I'm still considering the orientation of this card, even though in many ways it is a 3D object that you can rotate around while you're reading. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the alignment on it. So it's actually reading the other way. It's a short paragraph, so it's not so critical. I'm going to get rid of this extra margin because it's not serving me much anymore. So I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to make it 0. And I'm going to take this line of copy and I'm going to put it right here. And one of the things that can be really useful to pay attention to at this point is I don't want this new object that I've associated with this by proximity. I've associated this line of copy with this line of copy. These 3 lines of the title belong together more so than they belong with this. Even though this reads a particular way, and I may actually change how I wrote this at this point just so it makes a little more sense. I may actually change this to envisioning. envisioning Abbotsford as a community filled with rich and diverse local musical talent. So I may actually want to change this so that it's 2 paragraphs. Let's see. So again, I'm holding my Option key down to constrain it. And I'm gonna pull this down this way to enlarge it and show the second line. I can also make this a auto sizing box. But you see what happened here is all of a sudden now this line becomes too closely associated with these here. So leaving at least this, so this space here between the L and the U, this space should be equal, at least equal or less than this space here. And then I'm going to actually take this and I'm going to break this into 2 as well. So I'm going to take these 2. I'm going to double click on this. And I'm going to double click on this and delete it. I'm going to take my selection tool and select both of these objects and delete that margin so I get something. When you're working with layouts like this, it can be helpful to be working with shorter line lengths. I'm going to take this object here and resize it. And here you can see something interesting happening, which is by helping the grassroots music community connect with local audiences. Because this is such a short piece of copy, this hyphen is not very useful. So I'm going to select this copy. So before I was just selecting the bounding box. Now I actually want to select the text object, and I can tell it's selected because I've selected the baseline as well. I'm going to deselect the hyphen. And I'm going to make this a little bit shorter. So it's 3 lines. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the title. I'm going to change the alignment. Going to take my selection tool, so the hotkey V, and I'm going to rotate. Oh, I got to select the whole copy to do that. So here, okay. Rotation tool. Hotkey V, and I'm going to place this in here somewhere. This is a longer piece of copy, so take the rotation tool and rotate this. This is a longer piece of copy, so I wouldn't actually change the alignment to flush right. I'd like to fit this copy up in here. So I'm going to change the width of this, the line length. And you know what, associating these 2 is okay, but I think I actually want this up a little bit higher. And this aligning these 2 together can be pretty powerful. So what I'm going to do to make sure that I get this alignment right is I'm actually going to take this line segment tool and I'm going to start here at this point, and I'm going to click and drag down holding my shift key to constrain it to 45 degrees. I'm going to make it a guide by right clicking, and then I can turn it on and off. I need to. Here you can see I'm controlling the guides, the visibility of the guides, just by Command:. And now I'm going to place this right here. switch to my direct selection tool so I can grab this anchor point and just hang it onto the guide. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to save a copy as a PDF. Give it my name. Save again. I'm using my optimized. I'm not going to save the marks and bleeds this time because I don't need them. These are already set up as presentation pages. I'm going to go ahead and save PDF, and I'm just going to upload it to my Miro board. So thanks for watching. I know this one went on a little bit longer at the end, but I appreciate your patience, and I think there's some good things to be learned with how to work with type. So I'll see you on the next one.